Lovely to see you all. Thank you for coming. That was a great talk. Nice one to follow. Lots of overlapping themes there. That's going to be great. So first of all, I'll tell you a little bit more about myself. As Matt said, I'm Kirsty Hanly. I am a coach and formerly a cognitive hypnotherapist. I incorporate cognitive hypnotherapy into all of my coaching, which I've evolved to kind of create a deep coaching method, which I work with performers, actors, singers, musicians. I work with high-level business people. I work with a lot of coaches and therapists who want to create more successful practices. And I work with people who want to get more out of life. People who are in that zone of dissatisfaction, you know, that there's something more. Often people who are working to a very high level and to the outside look like they're achieving a lot. But actually, when you kind of dig under the surface, there's this sense of something else, you know? So often I'll coach to legacy. What can you create that's bigger than yourself? What can you leave behind you that's worth more than your cars or your, you know, whatever else it might be that you're collecting around you as a symbol of your success. So I run a workshop and I talk about created success, which is kind of an interesting. It always grates with me a little bit, this idea of success, created success, because really what I do is I coach to insights. I coach to insight level change. So rather than setting goals and, you know, this kind of surface stuff that we can all kind of play to, it's about what's the deep stuff underneath that by that shifting really creates the deep change. And by that, I mean the created success, the success that you can be responsible for in your life rather than the default stuff that tends to happen to us. So let's have a look. So what is success? You know, when you ask people to kind of name these things, it tends to be this kind of list: health and well-being, healthy relationships, job satisfaction, happiness, more money, promotion. I don't know if any of you can think of anything else that you'd add to that list. What else would you maybe put on there? Is there anything I've missed at all? I've got it all. Okay. But, you know, the list can kind of go on. You know, it's not just about this kind of idea of sort of capitalist success that we often collect together. You know, healthy relationships, I would say, are as much a part of that as anything else. And the good news is that success is an inside job, if we look at it that way, you know. We kind of have this interesting way of collecting together stories that we live by, you know. We kind of have these beliefs and ideas that we see as concrete, as sort of, you know, this kind of the box that we live within, you know, the things that I see are possible within my life, this kind of fixed idea. And that fixed mindset really restricts people in what they're trying to achieve in those areas, you know, in this. Those kind of ideas that you know, yeah, I can have healthy relationships, but they, you know, only this much, you know, I can go out with this person, but not that person. That wouldn't work at all. Or I can earn, you know, this much, but I definitely couldn't earn that much, you know, that would be for someone who ... was able to do whatever else, you know. And, you know, we all create these stories. And one of the things that I notice in my clients, or one of the benefits of having a coach, and I have my own coach, he's over in the States, and, you know, he's really great at kicking my ass out of my stories, you know, because we all slip into them. And to be really aware of the stories or the sentences that you live into is really important, in my opinion. Because the good news about all of our limiting beliefs and thoughts and fears and, you know, all of it is we create it for ourselves, you know, which means we can always create a better experience of how that is for us, despite sometimes getting trapped in these fixed mindsets that make us look like maybe we have to live with the way it is, you know. On my website, it says nothing has to be the way it's always been. And, you know, I'm a firm believer in that being absolutely 100% true, that we don't have to live with any set of circumstances that we're in. We have a choice. We can always choose where we go with that. So, you know, your unconscious mind controls or is responsible for at least 90% of what you do. A lot of people think it's actually more than that now. But, when you think about it, that's actually, it can be quite horrifying, really, in that if our unconscious desires and our conscious desires are misaligned somehow, then it can be a real uphill struggle to achieve what it is that you want to achieve. I often, when I'm working with my clients, often liken it to having like a bungee rope attached to your back. You sort of feel like, I should be able to do this thing, and yet you're kind of pulled back into whatever it is that you're sort of stuck in, the patterns you're stuck in. And so a lot of the work I do with my clients is about kind of how can we sever that bungee rope, and how can we align your unconscious and conscious desires so that you can run in the groove that really helps you. And one of the ways to do that is to let go of the limiting beliefs and the fears that hold us back. And I love what Dan was saying about, fear is, it's like the contemporary fears, it's like we don't have to be held back by those things that are not actually life-threatening. They're the things that 90% of our mind tells us, like, really be careful of, speaking in public, or be careful about asking for more money at work, because, your life is at threat, is what the unconscious mind kind of thinks. But consciously, we can know that that's a load of nonsense, and, it's possible to kind of work through that stuff. So it's the fear and the limiting belief that holds people back from success in their lives, success in all areas. So let's have a look at the greatest fears of people. These have come out of workshops that I've done of sort of people's top fears. And failure is an absolute big one. Who here has ever been afraid of failing at something? Yeah. Success. I have a slightly different slant on a fear of success in that, particularly as a woman, and I'm sure this is true for men as well, but as a woman, often we're kind of brought up to believe, be successful, be good, but not that good. It's like, shout about who you are, but not too much. And I think men often experience this as well, and so I really believe that every single individual everywhere in the world is really powerful. You all have something incredible to offer. And what would it mean for you to step into your success, to step into the power of who you can really be? That's quite a big concept for some people, and it can be a scratchy one, when you first start playing with it. I do this a game where that I play with my coach, and I play with my coaching clients, and it's like dreaming the big impossible dream. Like you dream the dream, and wow, it happens. Like you start creating it, and what's it going to look like when your big impossible dream actually happens? There can really be some contraction around that and some fear that comes out of that. Being found out, being judged, those are things that really keep people back in so many areas. So often I work with people who achieve a certain level of success, and then they jeopardize that success. I have a wonderful, wonderful client at the moment who's really amazing at creating really fabulous businesses, and then really amazing at destroying them, or has been until now, And a lot of, it's the limiting beliefs that kind of undermine all the time, and we're clearing that, and he's really flying right now. So looking stupid, rejection, looking stupid. Anyone seen my TED Talk? I knew some people in the room had. That was mine, fear of looking stupid. I was terrified of public speaking. I was terrified of speaking to more than 3 people in a room. I wouldn't have done it at all, I sat in trainings where I would sit and I'd have a question, and I couldn't answer the question, and I would be, beating myself up inside. I was so terrified, and my thing was that I feared looking stupid. I feared that there'd be judgment coming at me. Doesn't have to be true, right? Flexible mindset. Rejection is entwined in that as well. Lots of people fear being alone, which again can be really hand in hand with success. What if I'm the first one? What if I go out there and I do this thing and people don't come with me? What does that mean? What does that look like in my life? And again, not being accepted can be wrapped up in that. Not being accepted, a lot of people, particularly when I used to have just a cognitive hypnotherapy practice, a lot of people's stuff would go back to kind of, like playground stuff, not being accepted into a group of people at school. And, we all go through those scratchy teenage years where, we try and navigate friendship groups and things. And often our unconscious mind will hold those things like they are still true, kind of act as if I still need to protect myself from the need to be accepted. And being humiliated, like that's another one that's, that's pretty restrictive if you're living in that zone of fear. So now we have two. I was pointed out we have a little typo that neither me nor my assistant spotted earlier, but I'm not good enough. Like that is, that I would say is the number one, actually. That tends to be what really underpins a lot of people's stuff. It's the fears that are underpinned by the limiting beliefs. And these are the things, they're like the sentences that people live to. They're really restrictive, really restrictive sentences. I don't deserve things means that people don't ask for what they want in the world, that they don't even dream their big impossible dream because they, on whatever unconscious level, they feel like they don't deserve to have the stuff that comes with that. I can't do X until Y happens. This is a really, really great one in terms, well, not great if you're in the pattern of it, but in terms of not getting things done, like I work with a lot of therapists or coaches who will be like, well, I can't really have a successful practice until I've absolutely got my website right. I can't ask for, the business cards have got to be completely done before that can happen. Or, I have to achieve a certain level of training before this is possible. There's a lot of that. Does anyone ever experience that kind of like waiting for? Yeah. And it's a pattern that, you catch yourself in, and that's a perfectionist pattern as well. It's one that I'm a perfectionist, I'm so aware of the stuff that can come out of that, so now I just don't wait. Typos, fine, not a problem at all. It's like, do it and it's done. Because otherwise you can just sit around forever just waiting, I'll do it one day when I'm just about almost ready to die. I'm not loved or lovable is another one. A lot of people get themselves into relationships that are not ideal, A lot of people are really restricted in patterns they get into because they don't feel they deserve to be loved fully and appreciated for who they are. And it's interesting, I often when people come to see me, they'll have a kind of list of things they want to be different. They'll have, I want to earn more money, or I want a promotion, or I want to create this amazing project that I've kind of thought of, and it needs this, this, and this doing. And I see that to be like, it's like having a wonderful oak tree, with lots of leaves and branches of stuff. There's things there. But actually, it's the few core roots of the tree, but by them, those changing and shifting and growing differently and being nurtured differently allows the whole tree to begin to bloom in a different way. It's those core limiting beliefs that by them shifting, allow that root change to happen. And so that's why I don't really coach to the stuff, because the stuff just happens. You do that core work and then, oh, look, there I'm creating, I'm writing the book, or I'm doing the thing. It really shifts. But to be loved and to know that you're lovable can be one of those core things that really makes the biggest difference, along with I'm not good enough, or some people's is I'll never be good enough, that's a killer. So the good thing about all of this is that we have lots of tools to be able to work with the unconscious mind to change these patterns. There's so many things you can do. I'm also trained in NLP and hypnosis and positive psychology and all kinds of things, and there's so many other things out there that can really, really work on those patterns to shift them. which really does mean that nothing has to be the way it's always been. And then it is about creating the new habits around that to really kind of embed those changes into your life. Because we have two options. We have the default path, the default track, which is the path that we take because of our fears and our limiting beliefs. It's the path that you just kind of blindly go on. You go down the road, you don't really question, you don't necessarily live a life on purpose, you're just doing. You're kind of caught up in the doing. And a lot of people do that because they don't realize there's another way. They don't realize that there's something else that's possible. But then we have the created path. Then we have the other path that we have the possibility of taking, which is where we choose, which is where we really choose, how do I want to live my life? How do I want to show up? What do I want to be doing? What do I want to be creating in the world? How do I want to be relating to people? Do I want to live on this kind of surface level? Is that enough? Or does it feel like there's something else? Is there something else that's possible to me? That if I let go of those fears, if I transform those limiting beliefs, I can connect into more deeply. And I really invite all of you to kind of identify, what that might be, how your life might look different to you if you start to step outside of the stories, if you start to see things in a different way, and just be open to the possibilities. It's really interesting how, just like stepping outside of the box and seeing what else is possible from that place. And, the dreams that you're able to dream from a place where you're still in your limiting beliefs, from a place where you're still fixed in that space, are so different to what they can be when you start to look outside of that, when you start to let go of those things. It's always fascinating to me when people work with me that we start off from a place of, I want to be moderately successful and to have an okay relationship, and then we clear all that stuff and it's like, wow, okay, so I'm creating £5 million for my business, and I want the guy who's not a 10 out of 10 but a 15 out of 10, and I'm surrounding myself with people I love and who really nurture me, because there's a great quote of we're all a composite of the 5 people we spend the most time with, and who is that? And when you let go of those fears and limiting beliefs, who do you then choose to surround yourself with that really feeds you in a different way and can really nurture your spirit and who you choose to be in the world? So I've talked a lot there, haven't I? So before we finish, what I'd like you to have a think about is, what is your big dream? How often do you spend really thinking about, if you were to let go of those beliefs, of those fears that have been holding you back, what would be possible in your life? What would it be? Maybe just spend a moment. If you want to close your eyes just to kind of connect in with yourself for a minute, it might be really useful just for you to do this just for a moment. And just to spend a moment thinking, if I had a magic wand and I could wave my magic wand and I could make sure that each of you had unlimited belief and no fear, what would you be creating? What would you be asking the universe for? What would you be wanting in your relationships? And who would you be surrounding yourself with? And maybe think even about, what's your impossible dream? What is it that if you were to really go there now would seem completely crazy? What would you begin to ask for there? And when you've really fixed on what that is, just open your eyes and come back into the room with an intention, because what I'd like to invite you to think about is that no dream is impossible. A dream is just a step of steps away from where you are now. Everything is completely doable in ways that you wouldn't even begin to believe until you start to see it playing out in your life, So I'd like to invite you just to maybe just fix in your mind an action that you can take away with you from today, something that you can commit to for yourself that will mean that you're one step closer to living an amazing, magical, created life. Because inspiring lives is what I'm all about, and I'd love for you to take a little bit of that inspiration away with you today. I love this quote: "They believed they could, so they did." And each of you has something amazing and magical to offer. You know, each of you has a gift that you haven't even connected into yet, that you maybe haven't even discovered, something that you can bring into the world more powerfully than you are now. So go and take your commitment. And if you want to connect in with me on Facebook or Twitter, you'll find me there. And I'd love to hear what has sparked off for you today, what ideas and thoughts, and where you might go with that. So thank you very much. Thank you.